Kamito is a miserable loser and have some big eyes. Despite that, he has also have some special abilities because he was the only guy who could control spirits, which are magical beings. Because of his power, he got invited to a magical school for girls. Unfortunately, his life took a bad turn when a rude girl made him her servant, making him do chore like a maid at home. When Kamito stumbled upon a red-haired girl bathing in a river, he quickly reassured her that he didn't mean any harm. He clarified that he wasn't EDP. The embarrassed girl then revealed that she was 16 years old. But our pervy mix says that it is impossible because 16-year-old is not perfect as yours. This angered her, and she summoned her fire elemental when she realized she was a spirit elementalist. Kamito attempted to talk to her, but she used her flaming whip against him. The whip cut through the tree he was hiding behind. Kamito reminded her that she was still exposing herself while attacking him, causing her to drop the whip as she tried to cover up. However, the whip accidentally cut through the tree behind her. Kamito noticed this and quickly saved her before the tree fell, but in the process, he accidentally grabbed her balance. If you know guys about balance, then comment what kind of balance you like. She whipped him again, and when he woke up, the whip was tied around his neck. She was fully dressed now and told him to be grateful she spared his life. Kamito reminded her that he had saved her, but the girl, whose name was Claire, claimed he had only pretended to save her to touch her. He smiled and pointed out that she was one of the Asia Spirit Academy's shrine princesses, which made her ask why that mattered. He explained that only shrine maidens could interact with spirits from Astral Zero, so it was clear she had no experience with men. He also mentioned that she was quite bold for wearing red underwear. She immediately argued, insisting that her underwear was white. That's when she realized he had been teasing her. Seeing her embarrassment, he stood up and apologized. When she asked why he was in the forest, he showed her a letter explaining that he had been invited by Greyworth of the Academy. As they walked through the forest, Kamito asked Claire why she was there. She told him she was purifying herself in preparation for a spirit contract. She led him to an old building protected by a barrier and explained that inside was the legendary holy sword, Demon Slayer. This sword had supposedly defeated the demon lord Solomon. Claire said no shrine princess had managed to form a contract with it since the school's founding, so they weren't sure if it was real. However, because it housed a powerful spirit, she was willing to try. Kamito pointed out that she was already contracted to a fire spirit, and she admitted she needed more power. But he reminded her that sealed spirits were challenging to tame and could even pose a threat to their elementalists. Claire argued that she needed more power and took the barrier down before walking inside. Kamito followed her, but she made it clear that she wouldn't be responsible for him if anything went wrong. He asked if she was sure she could tame the spirit, and when she said yes, he insisted that there would be no problem if he came along. They soon reached the room containing the sword, positioned on an altar in the middle. As Claire approached it, Kamito warned her to be careful. In response, Claire teased him for being scared. When she reached the altar and pulled the sword from the stone, it turned to ashes, causing the altar to explode. Kamito quickly saved her from harm and revealed the real sword hovering above them, which attacked them. Kamito pulled them out of harm's way, but Claire got up and summoned her elemental, which took on its spirit form and attacked the sword. Unfortunately, the elemental was stabbed, and as Claire was about to be attacked, Kamito stepped in front of her. He held up his hand, allowing the sword to stab him, and spoke the contract words, managing to form a contract with the sword. The contract formation knocked him out cold. When he woke up later, Claire asked how a man could form a contract with a spirit, expressing surprise since only females had been able to do so. While she complained, Kamito wondered if she knew that there was only one man in history who had ever done that. When Kamito didn't provide her with an answer, Claire demanded that he become her contracted spirit. Later on, Claire led Kamito to the academy with her whip wrapped around his neck like a leash. He thanked her for showing him the way but asked why she had led him there like a stubborn donkey. Claire told him it was because he hadn't agreed to form a contract with her. He introduced himself as Keizea Kamito, but she found it weird and decided to call him Captain Fugly. Kamito mentioned that her name, Claire Rouge, wasn't common either. She admitted it sounded weird, but he said it sounded nice to him. Claire got embarrassed and tried to play it off, but when she turned around, she realized he had gotten loose and went in search of him. However, Kamito, who was in a nearby tree, jumped down and headed to the headmaster's office. As he walked through the school hall, the students wondered what a guy was doing in their school and whispered amongst themselves. When Kamito reached the headmaster's door, he overheard her arguing with someone who disagreed with her decision to invite him to the school. Suddenly, the door was kicked open, and a blue-haired girl kicked him to the floor before straddling him and holding her sword to his neck. When she realized he was a guy, she stood up and threatened to cut him up. She tried to attack him, but he moved out of the way. Before she could strike again, the headmaster told her to stand down. The girl, whom the headmaster referred to as Ellis, a foreign guard, tried to argue, but the headmaster didn't give her the chance to speak and asked her to stand down before inviting Kamito into her office. Inside her office, Greyworth is fucking Kamito. Sorry guys, I mean Greyworth informed him that Ellis was the head of the Sylphid Knights, responsible for maintaining order in the school. She expressed her displeasure with the idea of him being around. While speaking, she noticed the spirit seal on his right hand and asked how he had obtained it. Kamito told her it was a long story and then asked if what she had written in the letter was true. She confirmed it and mentioned that his contracted spirit was still alive. Kamito then inquired about Rishia, the spirit, but Greyworth informed him that she wouldn't share that information. Kamito questioned what Greyworth hoped to achieve by withholding the information, and she told him that she was having him transferred to the school. Sometime later, while Ellis was giving him a tour of the school, Kamito wondered about Greyworth's intentions. His thoughts were interrupted by Ellis, who accused him of checking out her backside. Kamito explained that he had been lost in thought and told her not to get upset. Ellis reminded him that she was only tolerating his presence in the school because of the headmaster and asserted that she would never accept a male elementalist. She then took him to the stables and pointed to a poorly built shack, informing him that it would be his lodging since he smelled like a donkey with a chronic case of body odor. Next, she led him to his classroom and left him in front of the door, only for Claire to use her whip to pull him towards her. Claire asked why he was being friendly with Ellis after running away from her. Kamito explained that Ellis was showing him around the school as he was now a student there. Claire didn't believe him, insisting that there were no male elementalists. The slow-witted girl then reminded him that he had stolen the sword from her, so he had to form a contract with her. Tired of her insistent yapping, Kamito agreed. However, the smug smile on her face disappeared when he backed her into a corner and stated that to form a contract with a high-level humanoid spirit, they had to seal it with a kiss. Claire became flushed and tried to give some shit to RMC, and she argued that it wasn't necessary to do that. But Armick is fan of Andrew Tate, so he says shut the fuck up. And he asked if she was scared and tilted her chin up confidently. Before he could go further, they were interrupted by Freya, their teacher. Later, inside the classroom, Kamito introduced himself to the class and was met with mixed emotions, making him realize that starting a herm was impossible. When he noticed Claire fuming in her chair, he wondered if she had forgiven him for teasing her earlier. One of the students asked if he had tamed the sword spirit, and he questioned how she had heard about that. Claire interjected, announcing that she had tamed him after he tamed the spirit. This led another student to inquire about their relationship. Claire wasted no time declaring it one of a master and slave, prompting Kamito to question when he had agreed to be her slave. To restore order, the teacher asked Kamito to find a seat. But on his way to find an available one, Claire wrapped her whip around his neck, stopping him in his tracks. She demanded that he sit beside her, but Kamito refused by saying fuck you, expressing that he didn't want to be stuck seeing her face every time he sat down. While he struggled to get loose, someone shot an ice arrow at the whip to free him. When he looked up, he saw a blonde-haired girl with green eyes, whom Claire referred to as Rinslet Lauren Frost. Rinslet is good with his flirting skills and Armick has also, so Claire got jealousy. As Claire asked why she was interfering, Rinslet stated that it was obvious Kamito wanted to sit with her. However, instead of acknowledging what he said, Kamito thanked Rinslet for saving him. In response, she asked him to become her servant, prompting Claire to tell her to find someone else, bitch. The two girls started arguing, repeatedly pulling Kamito between them like he is Luffy. Just after Freya asked them to knock it off, a maid came running towards them, asking her mistress to stop. While she was running, she accidentally tripped on the steps and almost fell. Kamito rushed to help her, because he the Spider-Man of this anime. Comment guys Spider-Man but in the process, but our Spider-Man slips and falls into her assets, and he is thinking he dead because he feel heaven. The maid, whose name was Carol, apologized but made no move to get up. The class erupted in screams while Claire brought out her whip to discipline him.